In Izzy's post-fight interview after losing to Imavov, he was asked on what his plans are going onwards, and I want you guys to tell me what you're taking from this.
Your legacy is cemented in the middleweight division. It always will be. It feels a little silly at this moment to ask you a question like this, but I have to ask where your head's at right now. What is next for you?
I don't know. I'll have to chill and then think about things. I'll relax first for a little bit, just help the teammates who have fights coming up, and yeah, see what I want to do. I was gonna do that anyway, but you know, now I'm forced to. Shout out to Nasruddin for that.
As an Izzy fan, I must say it really hurts to see him lose like this. The man is 1-4 in his last 5 UFC fights, and what I hate is that he's doing pretty well up until he loses. I would say the problem with Izzy is that he doesn't really have good grappling. People talk about his takedown defense, but at this point, I think everyone's figured him out. So when he goes up against an actual good grappler, they're most probably gonna either submit him or just take him down and gain some control time and maybe land some ground and pound, because we saw in his fight against Strickus, he was arguably winning up until he got submitted. Against Imavov, his wrestling defense looked pretty good. And mind you, Imavov is no slouch. This is the same Imavov that out-grappled Brendan Allen. Brendan Allen is the same guy that submitted Paul Craig, and Paul Craig is one of the best jiu-jitsu practitioners, possibly even in the UFC, because he's the same guy that submitted Jamal Hill and Magomed Ankalaev. And for Brendan Allen to do that to him means Imavov must be a really good grappler. And what does that say about Izzy's grappling? Because look at how Brendan Allen performed against Imavov versus Izzy. Izzy had a lot more success defending the wrestling, whereas Brendan Allen got controlled on the ground and he was actually having more success striking. So I would say Izzy's grappling is pretty underrated, defensively that is. I don't think he's a threat offensively. He doesn't land ground and pound. He doesn't have any submissions. He's never submitted anyone in his entire MMA career. So he's only good defensively, and that's taken him up to where he is today. The man has 8 title wins in his UFC career, and mind you, most UFC fighters never get to win a title, let alone fight for it. So his career has been pretty impressive thus far, but for some reason, he struggled to maintain his performance in his last 3 fights. And can you really blame him? Number one, Izzy is not the most complete fighter, so the blueprint has always been set out for him. You just have to be a good grappler. Unfortunately, the UFC middleweight division hasn't had good grapplers for a very long time. That was until Bo Nickal arrived and Khamzat, and now Nasruddin Imavov. I would say Nasruddin is not that good at grappling, but he's competent enough to have a takedown threat and actually have some success on the feet. And that was what we saw in his fight against Izzy. I would say Nasruddin was already a good striker, but the takedown threat definitely makes it harder for Izzy. And the man got finished. I didn't think Nasruddin was going to have success striking against Izzy. And I know Izzy has a boxing problem. I know MMA Chi has been saying this for a very long time. But I just didn't think Imavov was going to be able to outbox him, because watch his fight against Brendan Allen and you notice that Brendan was having some success striking. If Izzy was going up against Brendan, I don't think Brendan would touch him even once. I think Izzy would be throwing counters all night, gliding away with his footwork, moving laterally, and just knock him out in the first or second round. So props to Imavov for knocking him out. I wonder what the future holds for Izzy, and I wish he would retire, because I don't see him winning against any of these young and hungry prospects. I don't see him beating anyone in the top 5 excluding Robert Whittaker, whom he probably wouldn't even fight because they're now friends. He could beat some of the guys outside of the top 5, because let's be real, the middleweight division is not the greatest. He could beat Jack Hermanson, Marvin Vettori, Jared Cannonier, but if he fights guys like Caio Borralho, it's not going to end too well for him, because Caio is on a tear right now. I think Izzy would even lose to Anthony Hernandez simply because Anthony is a good grappler. Anthony probably wouldn't have an easy time against fighters like Caio Borralho, but against Izzy, because Izzy can't grapple, it should be an easy win for him, because he's a chain wrestler and I think he has a very good future in MMA. I just don't think he'll become champion because we have guys like Khamzat there. And I would love to see Imavov fight Khamzat or Dricus fight Khamzat. Those are the fights that I'm trying to see right now. But as for Izzy, I really don't see him winning high level fights right now. The best they can do is give him some washed out fighters who are just like him, or release him. But let's be real, the UFC doesn't have any problem keeping fighters that are on losing streaks like Tony Ferguson and Anderson Silva. And Izzy is pretty young, so they can still feed him to some prospects. So win or lose, he's still useful to the promotion, also because he sells tickets. But what do you guys think the future holds for Izzy? Let me know in the comments. Like and subscribe. Thank you.